Hey friends, welcome to Flight Test Tech. Today we're going to be showing you how to build, tune, and fly our new FT Freighter. Now if you haven't heard of the FT Freighter before, it is a new STEM pack that we have that teaches people how to build, how to fly, and also we've coupled these electronics with DIY designs so you can actually design and build your own, along with main designs that we're going to be putting out for you to repeat. So if you guys have never seen a build, tune, fly before, it's a little bit different than our conventional build videos where we take raw materials and we go all the way through to flying outside. This time we're going to be showing you how to assemble, how to wire and tune, and then how to fly your airplane outside, along with lots of really great tips and tricks to give you the best experience possible. This is a new product that we brought in specifically to give people a great first experience with flying models for under $50, and also to be able to go into schools, to home schools, to groups, to clubs, and also into your own home to teach young children how to build, how to design, and how to fly. So if you're ready to start building with me, go ahead and grab your FT Freighter and we'll begin. First thing we're going to do is unpackage all the components and do a little bit of identification. The first thing you're going to see is our manual. We're going to have our wings, our tail assembly, our fuselage, our engine nacelles, and on the bottom we're going to have our transmitter, our accessory kit, our motors, and our charger, and our glue and our control board. So the first thing we're going to do before we get started is put the battery on charge. This plane's going to build so quickly, what we don't want to do is finish the plane and then have to wait another 30 minutes to let the batteries charge. So let's go ahead and take out our battery and our little USB charger. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to plug it into a USB 5-volt adapter, and then we're going to make our connection. You're going to notice that there's a red light that comes up on the USB. Once that red light goes out, your battery is fully charged. Now that our batteries are charged, we're going to go ahead and put our attention towards the engine nacelles. With our engine nacelles, there's a really cool little chrome accessory kit that gives a really nice detail. Make sure you hold on to this accessory pack because you also have some really cool tools like a prop wrench for replacing your props in case they break, and also your landing gear. Let's go ahead and pop out our 4 pieces. And we're also going to get our glue. Now the glue that's included is incredibly strong and also a little bit rubbery, so I'd highly recommend using this over hot glue. Hot glue, if you're not careful, can melt the foam and also adds a lot more weight than what this will. The key to success is more glue does not mean more strength, so make sure you use this sparingly, and you're going to want to give this at least 15 minutes to dry. So just a couple little drops here and there. What I like to do is press fit it in and just a little bit of a twist. Put that one aside. While these are drying, I'm going to go ahead and get my little cover pieces for the engine nacelles. There's going to be 4 of them, and 2 sets of them that are going to mirror each other. So there's one set, and there's the other set. At this point we're going to go ahead and bring our wings out, and we're going to carefully glue the engine nacelles to the top here. Now this isn't going to seem like a very strong joint, but after we're done we're going to come back and we're going to put these little plastic clips on that's going to lock everything in place. So again, we're going to use a very small amount of glue. Kind of smear that smooth. And there's one. And each one of these I'm just going to hold for just about 30 seconds. Make sure you get these as straight and true as possible so they don't cause the plane to turn in the air. Now a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing. They probably want to say, oh, I'm going to go ahead and make this really light and avoid the weight. This plane has been specifically designed for it to balance out beautifully just the way we're building it, with all these cool features on there. And once it's glued together, it's incredibly durable. So don't skip this step thinking you're going to get better performance. Chances are you're going to get more problems. find with this glue, the thinner and the more even of a coat you put on, the quicker it's going to dry and the stronger it's going to be. We're going to let this dry for about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and whenever we flip this over, we're going to be very careful not to bump any of this as we put our clips on. With our engine nacelles glued on, we're going to go ahead and put our little reinforcement brackets here. Now, as I said before, each side is mirrored to each other, so you're going to have 2 matching pieces for the right and 2 matching pieces for the left. We're going to go ahead and focus most of our glue on the back support piece right here that's going to mount to the wing, and then also just a little bit on each side, like so. Now I'm going to press this down all the way. And notice I'm supporting the engine nacelle with one hand, and then also the wing and the back of the nacelle with the other. This is going to push down nice and evenly and be true and straight. Let's go ahead and do that for the other ones. A little glue on the tab, a little glue on each side. Alright, the engine nacelles and the wing are now done. We're ready to move on to our next step. Our next step is to mount our motors. Now you're going to notice that there's an R and an L indicating right and left for our motors. It's very important to put these on the right side of the plane, or else we're going to have the wrong reaction whenever the plane tries to steer in the air. Now the way that we're going to tell the right and left from our motor is with our wings facing away from us as if we're the pilot in the airplane. The right's going to be on the right side and the left's going to be on the left side. If the plane was pointing towards us, that would be obviously a problem. So go ahead and point the wing away from you. Find your right and left. And what I'd like you to do is when you flip this over, I want you to also flip the 2 motors. That way the right side stays with the right side and the left motor stays with the left side. Now that we have that part done, we're going to go ahead and just do a quick test fit. First on the right side, making sure that the wires follow down the channel just as you see right here. You're going to notice that there's a really nice little recess here that allows the motor to fit into place, and that's exactly where we're going to glue it. Let's go ahead and do that right now. A little drop on each side. Just kind of take the tip of the nozzle here. I'm going to spread that glue out nice and thin. And you'll also notice that there's a little R indent into the mold, which is going to help you out even more. We're going to hold this down for about 35-40 seconds before releasing. It's very important that we match up the letter of the motor to the letter on the wing by where the motor mounts. We're going to repeat the exact same process with the left side. There we go. And we'll let it dry. To finish off the motor installation, we're going to use a clear piece of Scotch tape to tape down the wires so they don't drag loose from the wing. Now that both motors are installed and the wires are routed, we're going to go ahead and carefully put this aside, making sure that both motors are in their place, and we're going to let it dry. Now that the motors are dried on the wing, we're going to go ahead and put our attention towards the fuselage and mounting the wing onto the fuselage. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do a simple dry fit. For our test fit, we're going to drop both leads down through the fuselage and simply press the wings in place. Now it's very important that we make sure that both wings seat down all the way onto the fuselage and that no wires hang out on each side. Once we're happy with the fit, we can lift this up and we're going to carefully place some glue on both raised levels of the fuselage and also along the perimeter. Same process as before. Press this right down into place. Make sure our wires come all the way through. And we're going to hold this in place for about 1.5 minutes. After your 1.5 minutes is up, we're going to go ahead and set this aside and let it dry for an additional 5 minutes, and then we're going to glue on our tail. You're going to notice that your tail assembly will only be able to fit together one way, just like this. After we've done our test fit, we're going to take our glue and we're going to focus it right around the edge and right on the top piece here. Now we'll carefully press this into place, and we want to make sure that everything is nice and tight, so our leading edge of our fin meets nice and flush, and our bottom surface against the horizontal stabilizer is also flush. Let's go ahead and let that dry for about 5 minutes. Now that the horizontal fin and the tail are firmly glued together, we're going to go ahead and do a quick test fit. And this is where you have a little bit of discretionary fitting here. You're going to notice that in our instructions it says if you're above certain altitudes you have to have certain angles of attack on your rudder. Now this is very important because if you live in somewhere like Colorado, you're going to need a little up deflection because the air is thinner there, and it's going to need to be able to pitch the airplane at a certain angle of attack to get it to fly properly. Our altitude here is 1062, so about 1,000 feet above sea level. You're going to want to expose about 0.5 millimeter of that mold line. So now that I have my adjustment made, I'm going to go ahead, put a little glue on here. I'm not going to put too much just in case I have to crack it loose and adjust it. And I'm going to slide it in place. All the way down in the front, all the way down in the back, and then just about 0.5 millimeter. It's such a fine adjustment that you won't really even be able to see it too much. There we go. We're going to go ahead and let this dry, and we'll move on to our next step. Now with our wings and tail all glued on, I'm going to go ahead and turn this upside down and let the tail hang off the end of my workbench. I'm now going to go ahead and get my control board, which looks just like this. Something really cool is you're going to notice that the control board actually has color-coded connectors that'll tell you exactly which ones to plug into which. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and take my red one, and I'm going to carefully plug it in, and then my white connector. I'm being very careful to make sure I match up where the pins are going to lay so I'm not pushing it in with too much force. Making sure that our battery connector's in the front and that we're not pinching any wires. We're going to do a quick test fit. See this all the way down in. So what I've done is I've opened up the top hatch here and kept my battery pulled through just to make sure I don't accidentally pinch that back in the very back of it. Once I'm happy with that fit, I'm going to take my glue, carefully put a soft little bead right around the edges. And these small amounts of glue will be very easy to break. So say later on you guys want to build a scratch-built airplane and take the electronics out of here. It's not going to be hard to disassemble the airplane without ruining the airframe. And just like before, I'm holding down for about 30-40 seconds, and then we'll let it rest and dry. With our control board drying here, I'm going to go ahead and get the hardware kit for our landing gear and our wingtips. The little tool that you see right here is for safely removing the props, and these are 2 extra propellers in case one of them breaks. We're going to go ahead and put this in the bag and put it in a safe place. Our first piece we're going to locate is the nose gear piece. You're going to notice that the nose gear reinforcement is different because it's flat where the main gear is curved. Once you find your flat piece, we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue right around the flange of the nose of the airplane, and then we're going to press this in place. We're going to do the exact same process now on the main gear. A little bit of glue. Press it in place. If you're going to be flying off of grassy surfaces or surfaces that aren't hard like asphalt or concrete, don't bother putting the landing gear on at this time. Go ahead and put that in a safe place. If you are going to be flying off your driveway or asphalt or a solid surface, we can go ahead and install that right now. For our nose gear, we're going to have the little flag piece pointing back towards the tail. A little bit of firm press and it'll be in. Same process on the main landing gear, except this time the wheels are going to point back towards the tail. There's one, and there's two. Our last step is to mount our little wingtips on. This is a really important step. This actually does help the flight characteristics a little bit, so don't neglect this part. We're just going to press and hold that, and then do the other side. The main airframe of the FT Freighter is now done. All we need to do is wait for the battery to finish charging, which should be any minute, and then I'm going to show you some basics around the transmitter and also binding your airplane. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a connection with our battery. We're going to install our battery here. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and favor it towards the back. We can always move it towards the nose if we need a little bit more nose weight. I'll go ahead and tuck my wires down in there, and then we're going to turn it on. You're going to notice a rapid flashing light, and we're going to put on a level table. Our next step is to go ahead and take the transmitter, and we're going to turn it on with the throttle all the way down. You're going to notice that this light changed its speed to a slow flash, and what we want to do now is go all the way full throttle, and then all the way down. At this point, you're going to notice that the red light gets solid, and also that the light on the bottom is solid. Now when we give it throttle, she's ready to fly. Now, a couple features about this transmitter that I want to encourage you to consider before you fly for the first time. You have two different rates. If you have a smaller backyard or you want to be able to turn sharper, you're going to press this one time to make a flashing red light. If the red light is solid, that means you're in low rates. Low rates is going to be fantastic if you have a young child or you're a little bit nervous but you have a wide open space. Just keep in mind the turning radius on low rates is going to be about 150 plus feet away from you. So make sure you have plenty of space to be able to do that turn. When you click at the high rates, it's going to be about half of that. Alright, let's go ahead and take it out and fly it. Alright friends, our FT Freighter is now all built. We're ready to go out and take it for a maiden. Just like I showed you downstairs here on how to bind it, you're going to want to do that every single time. So you power it on, level surface, power on your transmitter, full throttle, count to 1, 2, 3, decrease throttle. At that point, everything's been calibrated and it's automatically been bound. Now for flying this here, where you put your battery for your center of gravity is going to be a matter of feel. I always start with a little bit nose heavy, but if I notice the plane doesn't want to hold altitude and turn specifically, I'm going to go ahead and move that back. Also, as I mentioned earlier, you can adjust your tail, just kind of giving a little bit of tweak if you have anything abnormal, but if you followed my instructions in the build video, you should be really, really close. Let's go ahead and try to take off real quick and see how she does. I'm going to point it into the wind. This is my backyard, so we'll kind of go out towards the power lines here, and we'll see how she flies. You're going to need a good 20 plus feet to get it off the ground. Let's go back a little bit further. There we go. Ready? We're in high rates. And there she goes. We'll go ahead and climb a little bit, do a nice gentle turn off to the right. Unless you're a beginner here and you have a wide open space, I'd strongly recommend don't waste your time with low rates, go to high rates. And we have a little bit of wind today, and you can see that it handles it just beautifully. One of the reasons we chose to bring this in our lineup was just how durable it was, but the exceptional flight characteristics. This was just truly set apart compared to all the other ones that we tested. All right, so right now I'm flying at half throttle on high rates. I'm going into the wind or kind of quartering crosswind. Let's go ahead and do a couple turns here. If you're flying in windier weather and you're going from into the wind to downwind, anticipate losing a little bit of air or a little bit of altitude, and you're going to want to make sure that you're ready with the throttle. Other than that, you really got to just relax, and the plane's going to take care of itself. That's one thing that makes it such a great beginner flyer. All right, I'm really happy with the flight characteristics. I'm going to go ahead and take it down a little bit lower. Half throttle will pretty much give you a nice level cruise. When you decrease the throttle, you'll be decreasing altitude, and when you give full throttle, you'll be climbing. It's as simple as that. Look at that. It's handling the wind beautifully. Give full throttle, we'll climb out. Gonna show you a couple tricks here. A lot of times people are used to chopping the throttle 100% and letting it glide, but this has a setting where if you chop the throttle 100%, it's gonna go ahead and try to maintain level when it's turned. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it up high. I'm gonna chop the throttle, you can see we're doing it, but when I give a rudder, you're gonna see that I'm turning, and it's gonna put me into an attitude where it's actually cruising. If you wanna decrease and turn, carry at least 10% throttle, and then you're gonna have a nice, soft, descending turn. Only chop the throttle right before you hit the ground. Little flyby for you. It's so slow in the wind. We were really excited about bringing this along for beginners, but I gotta be honest with you, whether it's flying the freighter or whether it's flying our own creations, these are so much fun to do, both with kids and with adults. Let's go ahead and see if I can bring it in for a landing here. A little bit of throttle carrying. There it is. All right. Well, friends, I hope you guys have as much fun with the FT Freighter. Like I said before, this is not an original from Flite test, but we really wanted to bring people a great experience, and we just simply couldn't do that. And when we looked around and found this freighter, we loved it so much we couldn't help but bring it in, but also add it to an experience like FT STEM. So that's why it's called the FT STEM Freighter. Look for a whole bunch of really great interactive activities that you can do with your friends, family, at a homeschool, or even in the classroom, where you learn how to fly, you learn how to build, and you learn how to design. Thanks for being part of the family. We'll see you next time.